Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this Monday, June 26, 2023. Thank you for tuning in. Now, I've seen on a lot of shows, quite a few on there, they're saying now that what happened with this Wagner military group attacking Russia and driving toward Moscow, and then all of a sudden the whole thing stopped. I've seen quite a few commentators on here saying that they think that was all just a show. It was all arranged, and that it was some sort of a swindle, or they're saying it was some sort of just a show, put on show. It wasn't really real or anything. Now, I listened to what they had to say, and there is some things that kind of point toward perhaps a readjustment of military forces, like moving the Wagner group now into Belarus, and also the nuclear weapons into Belarus for a possible attack of Kiev from the northern side. But some things just are not fitting for me. Now, the whole situation that happened with the whole thing with Wagner in Russia, the whole thing just stinks to high heaven that something's up. It's just it just doesn't fit properly, the whole thing. But I'm not going to jump right in there and jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, this was all arranged. Because there's a number of things that aren't sitting right with me about it being arranged. Wagner forces shoot down Russian airborne command. They say, he was waltzing right through toward Moscow with absolutely nothing to stop him, and the Russians were allowing him to come right in, and no shots were fired and all that. That's not true. I saw on video that they were digging holes in the highways leading into Moscow with earth-moving equipment to try to stop the Wagner forces from advancing into Moscow. And what about this? Wagner forces shoot down Russian airborne command. It says imagery published on social media has confirmed that Russian Air Force the Ilyushin 22M airborne command post platform was among several military aircraft shot down inside Russia in an apparent attempted coup by the Wagner Private Military Corporation. Now, this thing was all just a show arranged by Russia to try to fool us into thinking, if that's what it really was, why would they shoot down their own aircraft? It doesn't make any sense. Why would they dig holes in their own highways leading into Moscow? That doesn't make any sense. What else? Armed rebellion in Russia. Russian Air Force bombs its own city to stop Wagner. And the traffic on the Moscow River was temporarily suspended. Why would they do that if they all arranged this thing themselves? These things do not point toward this being some sort of a setup. These things point toward that this was real, that Wagner mercenaries were pushing toward Moscow for real. That's what this points toward. So this is... Now, I'm not saying that the opposite opinion can't be true. I'm just saying that we got to take in all the evidence to find out what really happened here. We just can't go on what people say, because they're just speculating too about what's going on here. This was a very fishy situation. It was weird the way it all happened. It was very, very weird, very, very strange. And so I think a lot of others, like myself, are wondering what happened here, and we're trying to sort it out, trying to figure it out. But we haven't figured it out yet, and anybody who says, hey, this is what happened, I know what happened, why it happened, stuff, well, they're lying to you because they weren't there. I wasn't there, and, well, we can only get information that's trickling out and try to piece it together and figure out what happened. And we haven't figured it out completely yet. But what we do know is that Russia has moved nuclear weapons into Belarus. And these nuclear weapons that they moved into Belarus are 3 times stronger than the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it's undetermined exactly how many that they've moved into Belarus. But they have moved them in there for a reason. Okay? We know that. And what else do we know? We know that the Wagner group now is moving into Belarus. They've been exiled to Belarus. So, what does that mean? Well, it means there's already a large station of troop groupings in Belarus already. And it means that they've now brought in nuclear reinforcements and nuclear weapons as reinforcements. And they've just brought the Wagner group in there. So now they've got a very powerful army in Belarus that's back with nuclear weapons, that's ready to go. This is what we know. And we also know positioning toward Kiev. Kiev is just right there. I think it's like 60 kilometers away. I think. Yeah, I may have to look that up, but I know it's close. Could they, like it says, where did I have it right here? Well, I just said, could they be setting their eyes on Kiev? And what about those nuclear weapons? They're back. This is a force that's back with nuclear weapons. The force that's in Belarus right now. Okay, so that pretty much covers the situation up to the point where we are right now. Now we're going to have to wait and see what happens next with this. Now we're going to focus our eyes on the markets today and see what's going on there. Here we go, guys. Silver price is $22.60. Now, we are right on the spike part of the deflationary spike event, as far as I'm concerned. The spike hasn't really happened yet. You say, well, what is a spike, Glenn? What's the spike of the deflationary spike event? That's at the very center, core of the deflationary event. And the deflationary event started when the Fed started their tightening process. But it reaches a culmination. And the culmination is the spike. And what is the spike? I'll tell you what the spike is. The spike is when everybody tries to, because the system is so leveraged, when the system starts to deleverage, people have to pay off what they owe. Suddenly it's like a margin call. It's like, hey, you know what? We've made big losses now. Our company in the markets or whatever, or in the real estate markets or whatever. We've taken big losses. Maybe it's in commercial real estate. Maybe it's in junk bonds or whatever. Maybe they've made big losses. And now the banks are starting to not be able to lend money out and liquidity's drying up. And what actually happens is this creates like a margin call. There's not enough money to go around. It's almost like musical chairs, in the respect that the music stops. And somebody is going to go bankrupt. So there's a mad scramble for liquidity. That's what the deflationary spike event is. And you see everything go down suddenly Equities, they just sell them because I gotta pay off my debts. I gotta sell my equities. I gotta. Oh, those Bitcoins. Well, just let them go. You know, I gotta get cash. I gotta cover myself here, and that's what happens. And so everything just goes down suddenly. It crashes. That's the spike. But at a certain point, it trips the switch on these guys who are being tight with the system. Oh yeah, they can talk a mean game. Oh yeah, the Fed can talk a mean game. Oh, we're gonna be tight and we're gonna conquer inflation and all this kind of stuff. They can talk a mean game when nothing's happening and the markets are stable. But when you get massive instability in the system, when you get volatility like you've never seen before in the system, then they come to their knees, and it's a find Jesus moment for them. I mean, they at that moment they go back to wanting the baby bottle at that point. So what do? What do? They move in the opposite direction. Whatever direction they're going in, they're going to be hawkish and all this kind of stuff. Fed governors and stuff. When the system starts to collapse, then they all turn around and go in the opposite direction and being dovish again. And trying to save the system. Because the system's what feeds them. It's what nourishes them. It's what makes them fat and full of money. It's the system. It's their baby. It's their duck that lays the golden eggs. The golden eggs is how they have their house in the Hamptons. You know? And they're not going to let that go down. They feed it and nourish it. But they're not going to do anything until there's a problem. And there's no problem just yet. The deflationary spike is the problem. That's the big problem. And then they have to fix it. But they're only going to fix it when it happens. They're not going to fix it before it happens. So they're going to remain hawkish and tight until they cause the problem. And then when they cause the problem, then they'll fix it because they got an unlimited printing press. What part of unlimited does people not understand? I know people out there are strained for liquidity. Liquidity's short right now. So everybody is thinking, hey, I better hold back on that purchase this month because, oh man, things are getting tight. And yeah, they are. And companies are going to start to go down. They're going to start to go under because they can't muster the cash together to stay afloat. Especially these zombie companies and stuff. But all this ends suddenly. When they get on the other end, when the system starts to collapse and they get frightened and they go back to print money again. And they will. They won't let the system completely crash. And this is the deflationary spike event is when the system starts to actually crash. People start to sell everything off. And one of the first things that they will sell off, and I don't want to hurt you guys' feelings, you guys who love your cryptos, but that's a very speculative investment, and in a mad dash to get cash, they will sell it. They'll sell it before they sell their gold and silver, especially their physical. Because the paper gold and silver, oh yeah, they'll sell that. And they have been. And that's what you see reflected here in the price of gold and silver is paper. And they'll sell the paper. The paper can go to zero. It doesn't have any reflection any longer on the real physical metal. It's just paper. So this price here, this is a paper price of silver. But more and more, if they sell this stuff off and lower the prices, less and less. This is what the premiums are all about. The premiums define a separation between the paper price for silver and real silver. You don't get real silver unless you pay a premium. And, in the end, the premium might be all of it. It might be almost all silver. Because this stuff, this paper, who wants it? If it's not backed by real metal. If they run out of real metal, they can't back it by real metal. Well, they can still continue to even trade it. And what'll it trade for? 5 cents? What's it worth? I don't even know if it's worth 5 cents. Meanwhile, you might have a $2,300 premium per ounce. And so the paper price is worth 5 cents, and you got like thousands of dollars per ounce for the real thing. I mean, this is how extreme it could go. I'm not saying it will. I'm just showing you guys the extreme of what could happen. But we've already seen the separation, and the separation is the premiums you have to pay. Anyway, moving on, taking a look at the price of gold today. 1922, it's up $1.90. Cryptocurrency, it has been doing very well, but watch out. Because like I tell you guys, this is a speculative asset class. And in a crash, when they have to make margin calls and stuff, they will sell this stuff off to try to pay off debts. Anyways, 30,497 for Bitcoin. Ethereum's 1806. 1896. Sorry. Taking a look at the Dow today. We're up 40 points. At 33,767. Taking a look at oil today. It's off 26 points. Down 26, not 26 points, 26 cents down. At 68.90. Bonds and rates today, we're looking at falling yields. The U.S. 10-year's at 3.72. It's fell 1.4 basis points. And the U.S. 30-year fell 0.7 of a basis point at 3.81. Taking a look at the U.S. dollar index today. A dollar's going along sideways at 102.74. I just think this is a very dangerous situation right now. Nukes in Belarus and a lot of troops up there that could move. I just say they could. I'm not saying they will, but they could move toward Kiev. And they got nukes to back them up. What could go wrong for the world? And so this war in Ukraine's far from over. This war in Ukraine's been a blooming nightmare. And I don't consider that the hot spot. What's going on there in Belarus? No, the hot spot is a Zaporizhia power plant. This is the spot I consider that could cause World War III if we can't get out of this war. And the reason why is they blew up the dam. The water's all run out of the river now. They got a containment pool there. It's like a little reservoir that's keeping the rods cool. The spent nuclear fuel rods that want to heat up and want to release. They would love to heat up those rods if there's not enough water to cool them in the containment pond. They just love to heat up and spew radiation all over Europe. Those rods, they would love to do that, to overheat and have a nuclear meltdown in the rods. And spew radiation all over Europe. So, if something happens to that little wall of earth that stands between the containment ponds and the river, which water level's so down so low that if something were to breach those little walls of earth, and they're just like a little mound is all they are around the containment ponds. Just, like a little levee, what they call a levee. It's just a little earthen wall that holds the water back. If something happens to those earthen walls, that water will drain out, and suddenly you'll have a situation in the nuclear power plant because they won't have any water to run the reactors. And this is a huge danger. Because if radiation, if that look at that like a domino falling. If that domino falls, then the next domino is a lot bigger domino, because then radiation would start to spill, and then we would have all these agencies, nuclear regulatory agencies and stuff like that, would have to come rushing in, and the Russians control the plant. And so then you got Western agencies coming in there, probably with troops or whatever, and the whole thing could just blow up into some sort of a invoke Article 5 sort of mess. And then the next thing you know, we got boots on the ground. NATO boots on the ground. Because if Article 5 is invoked, then it just disintegrates from there forward. And so that contentious area, that nuclear power plant, is a very contentious area that could drag the world into another third world war. And the blowing up of that dam and releasing that water was a terrible thing. Terrible. It was a terribly bad escalation, because it exposed this power plant, made this power plant vulnerable to meltdown. I can only sigh about this, But hopefully everything's going to work out okay, and somehow, if we could just get out of this war and get this over and behind us, and as part of history rather than being living it. Because it's a blooming nightmare war. So many people are getting injured and hurt, and damaging people's lives, and the cost. Everybody loses. Russia loses, the United States loses, Europe loses, Ukraine loses more than anyone. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.